The bill hit my inbox at 6:12 a.m. I thought it was a typo. $5,743.18. For 1 month. For my small townhouse where I barely run the AC. I refreshed the page 3 times. Same number. Same due date. Same threat in red, final notice. I called the power company. They didn't laugh. The agent went quiet, then asked, "Do you have any large equipment running overnight?" I said no. She read my usage back to me. The spike started at exactly 9 p.m. Every night. Like a timer. Like something switching on after the neighborhood went to bed. So I walked outside with my phone light and listened. A low hum came from the HOA clubhouse across the street. Then I noticed something else. The gate motor was cycling even when no car was there. Click. Whir. Stop. Click again. When I emailed the HOA manager, she replied in one line, "Owner responsibility. Pay the bill. No questions. No concern. Just pay." That's when I opened the electrical panel in my garage and saw a breaker I never labeled, pulling hard like it was feeding someone else's life. And the moment I flipped it halfway, the whole complex reacted. I pushed the breaker back up right away. My heart was pounding. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe the lights flickered by coincidence. Maybe the gate was already having problems. But within seconds, my phone started buzzing like it was angry at me. First it was a text from my neighbor, Tom. "Did your power just blink? The gate is making a weird noise." Then another message. "Clubhouse alarm is going off." I didn't reply. I just stood there in my garage, staring at that unlabeled breaker like it was a snake. It didn't make sense. My place was quiet. My fridge was running. My Wi-Fi stayed on. Nothing inside my home had changed. And yet people outside were reacting. Then I heard it. Not from my house. From across the street. A sharp beep. Then a long, angry wail. The kind of sound you only hear when someone trips a security system or a backup battery is dying. I walked to the end of my driveway and looked toward the clubhouse. The front door lights were out. The side lights were out too. A few residents had stepped outside in pajamas, holding phones up like lanterns. Someone shouted, "Is the power out?" Another voice yelled back, "Not in my unit." That was the worst part. It wasn't a full outage. It was selective. Like I had pulled a plug that only fed the HOA's toys. My stomach dropped, not because I felt guilty, but because I felt right. I went back inside and opened my email thread with the HOA manager. Her message was still there. Owner responsibility. Pay the bill. No name. No greeting. Just a wall. So I replied with one sentence. "I need an emergency call today. My meter is showing abnormal load and may be tied to common equipment." 5 minutes later, my phone rang. It was the manager. Her voice was tight and fast. "Did you touch anything?" she asked. I paused. "Why would you ask that?" "I'm asking a simple question," she said. "Did you touch the electrical panel?" I looked at my garage door. I looked at the breaker again. Then I said, "I checked my breakers." "That's normal." She exhaled like she was trying not to scream. "Do not touch common systems," she said. "If you cause damage, you will be billed." Damage. That word hit like a slap. They had no proof. They didn't even know what happened. But they jumped straight to blaming me. Not asking why my bill exploded. Not asking why their building just went dark. Then she added, almost by accident, "We have events tonight. We can't have power issues." Events. Not residents. Not safety. Events. That's when I stopped thinking like a scared homeowner and started thinking like a person who needed evidence. I grabbed a notebook. I wrote down the time, the beeping, her exact words. Then I called the electric company back and asked for a meter technician and a usage report, down to the hour. While I was on hold, another email came in from the HOA. The subject line said, "Cease and desist." I opened the cease and desist email and just stared at it. It was written like I was some kind of criminal. It claimed I was interfering with association infrastructure and creating community disruption. It demanded I stop tampering immediately. No mention of my bill. No mention of the $5,500 jump. Just threats. I called the electric company again and switched from confused to very calm. I asked for a field tech. I asked for a meter test. I asked for a full usage breakdown. The agent lowered her voice and said, "If there is shared wiring or an unauthorized connection, we need to document it." Then she asked me a question that made my skin prickle. "Has anyone done electrical work in the community recently? New lights. New gate. New equipment." I looked out my window at the clubhouse. 2 weeks ago, the HOA bragged in an email about security upgrades. New cameras. New floodlights. A new access system at the gate. They even posted photos like it was a victory. Suddenly those upgrades didn't feel like progress. They felt like a finger pointing straight at my meter. An hour later, a black SUV rolled up and parked near the clubhouse. Marla, the board president, stepped out. She didn't come to my door. She stood on the sidewalk and looked at my garage like she was trying to see through the walls. Then she made a call. I watched her talk with her hands. Sharp movements. Angry ones. She kept glancing back at my driveway. My phone rang again. This time it was a different number. A man introduced himself as the HOA's attorney. He spoke slowly, like he was teaching a child. "You are not allowed to touch association equipment," he said. "Any disruption will be treated as intentional." I said, "I haven't touched association equipment." He paused. "Then you won't mind paying your balance while the board reviews your complaint." That's when I realized the story they were building. If I paid, it became my problem forever. If I didn't pay, I became the villain. So I didn't argue. I asked for one thing. Send me the section of the governing documents that makes me responsible for common area power. Silence again. Then he said, "We will be in touch," and hung up. That afternoon, the utility technician arrived. He opened the meter box, clipped on his tools, and watched the numbers crawl. He didn't need long. He turned to me and said, "This meter is feeding a load that is not behaving like a normal home." He asked me to shut off everything inside. I did. Lights. AC appliances. Even the fridge, for a minute. The meter still pulled hard, like something outside was still drinking from my line. Then my electrician showed up. He took one look at my panel and pointed at the same unlabeled breaker. "What does this feed?" he asked. "I don't know," I said. He nodded once. "We're going to find out." He flipped it off, then followed the wiring with a tester. His eyes moved from the panel to the wall. Then to the conduit that ran up into the ceiling. Then, very slowly, he traced it toward the front of my garage, where the line disappeared into a pipe that headed straight toward the street. My electrician didn't rush. He was the kind of guy who moved slow when something felt wrong. He tapped the metal pipe where the wire disappeared and said, "This line is leaving your unit." I asked, "Is that normal?" He gave me a look like I had asked if fire was normal. "It depends what it feeds," he said. "But it should not feed anything outside your home." He called the utility technician over. They both crouched near the panel. The tech clipped a meter around the wire and watched the reading. Then he nodded at the breaker. "Flip it off," he said. I took a breath and turned it off. The reading dropped hard. Like something huge had just been unplugged. The technician's eyebrows went up. "That's not a space heater," he said. "That's equipment." We waited. 10 seconds. 20. Then, from across the street, the clubhouse alarm started screaming again. Not the polite beep this time. Full panic mode. Like a building had just realized it was alone. My electrician didn't smile. He just said, "Keep it off for a minute. Let's see what else dies." We walked to the sidewalk. People were already outside again. The gate arm was stuck halfway. Cars were lining up. Someone yelled, "The keypad is dead." Another person shouted, "Why is the pool pump off?" I felt my stomach twist because it matched the pattern on my bill. The spikes at night. The steady pull. The exact kind of load that runs on timers. The utility tech spoke quietly. "If this is tied to common equipment, this is an authorized usage," he said. "And it's not small." My electrician pointed at a green metal box in the grass near my driveway. A ground box most people never notice. He lifted the lid with his tool. Inside were thick cables and a printed tag on the inside wall. The tag had a number and 2 words that made my throat go dry. "Clubhouse feed." I stared at it. That's not possible," I said, even though it was sitting right there in front of me. The technician took photos. He wrote the tag number down. He took a second reading from the wire and said, "This is enough to open an investigation." That's when Marla came storming across the street, still in her HOA board jacket like it was armor. She didn't look at the utility tech. She didn't look at the electrician. She looked straight at me. "What did you do?" she snapped. I kept my voice flat. I turned off one breaker in my own panel. Her face tightened. "Turn it back on. Right now." The utility tech stepped between us a little. "We're verifying a possible cross-connection," he said. Marla ignored him. "You're going to pay for this," she said to me, low and angry. Then her phone rang, and she answered like she already knew what it was. "Hello," she said, and her eyes locked on mine. "Yes. The clubhouse is down. And the gate. And everyone is calling me." Marla covered the phone with her hand and hissed, "This is private property. You can't shut us down." The utility tech didn't even look up. He kept taking photos. He said, "If your equipment is on his meter, it was never yours to use." Marla's mouth opened, then closed. She turned back to her call. "No, I don't know why it's happening," she said, louder. "Yes, people are angry. Yes, the gate is stuck." I could feel the neighborhood mood shifting. Doors were opening. A few people pointed at me like I had done something on purpose. Tom walked over and lowered his voice. "Dude, is this you?" "I turned off a breaker in my house," I said. "That's it." He blinked. "So why did the clubhouse die?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The screaming alarm answered for me. The HOA manager arrived 10 minutes later, phone pressed to her ear, with board members behind her. She ignored the technician. She went straight to me. "Turn it back on," she said. "We'll talk later." "Later is how I got a $5,500 bill," I said. Her eyes flashed. "You are creating a safety issue." The electrician held up his tester. "The safety issue is the wiring," he said. "This is cross-connected." The manager's voice dropped. "If you cooperate, we can discuss a credit." "A credit?" I asked. "For money you pulled from my meter." Marla finally hung up and stepped closer. "You're going to regret this," she said. "We can fine you daily." The utility tech stopped writing. "Fines don't change electricity laws," he said. "And I need everyone to understand something. If this breaker is feeding common equipment, it stays off until it is properly separated. He handed me a case number on a small card. Then he looked at Marla. Your association will need a licensed contractor. And you will need to explain why this was connected. Marla's face went stiff. It was probably a mistake, she said fast. A contractor. Years ago. Then it will be easy to prove, I said. Show me the work order. No one answered that. My phone buzzed again. A new email from the HOA attorney. 3 lines. All caps. Restore power immediately. Failure to comply will result in legal action. I stared at it. Then I looked at the dark clubhouse, the stuck gate, and the breaker that was finally quiet. And I realized they weren't scared of the outage. They were scared of what the paperwork would expose. I didn't reply to the attorney. Not yet. I forwarded the email to the utility case number instead. Then I forwarded it to my electrician too. I wanted every threat in one place. Time-stamped. Clean. Simple. The HOA manager kept talking like she could pressure the moment back into place. Just flip it back on, she said. We can reimburse you. We can work something out. How much? I asked. She blinked. Excuse me. How much are you offering? I said, before you even know what you took. Marla snapped, this is not a negotiation. But it was. And they knew it. The utility tech made a call from his truck. When he came back, his tone changed. He sounded careful now. Because this appears to feed common equipment, he said, it may fall under an authorized diversion. That's not handled by customer service. Marla's face lost color for half a second. She tried to hide it. We have no idea what he's talking about, she said, too fast. My electrician asked the simplest question in the world. Who did the security upgrade? The manager hesitated. Just a beat. Then she said, a vendor. It was approved. What vendor? He asked. Marla cut in. That's HOA business. The utility tech looked at her. Not when it's on his meter, he said. I pulled up the HOA newsletter on my phone. The one with the photos. It had a name under the thank you to our partners section. I read it out loud. Marla's eyes narrowed. The manager's jaw tightened. So I did what they hated most. I stayed calm and asked for records. I want the contract, I said. The invoice. The permit. The board vote. And the date the work was done. The manager forced a smile. You can submit a formal request. I'm submitting it right now, I said. In writing. With this case number. Marla stepped closer again. Turn it on, she said, slow. Or we will have you removed. Remove from my own driveway. I asked. She didn't answer. She just stared at the electrician's hands like she wanted to grab the tools herself. Then a patrol car rolled into the community. Not speeding. Just creeping. Like someone had called in a problem. The officer got out and looked from the dark clubhouse to the crowd at the gate. The HOA manager walked straight to him and started talking first. I could not hear the words. But I saw her point at me. And when the officer started walking toward my driveway, Marla finally smiled. The officer stopped a few feet from me and asked, "Are you the homeowner here?" "Yes," I said. "My meter is being used for HOA equipment. The utility company is here. My electrician is here." The HOA manager jumped in fast. "He shut off power to the clubhouse and the gate," she said. "He's disrupting the community." The officer looked past her at the utility technician. "Sir," he asked. The utility tech held up his badge and his clipboard like he had done this 100 times. "We're investigating a cross-connection," he said. The homeowner turned off a breaker in his own panel. That breaker appears to feed common area equipment. It should not. We instructed that it remain off until it's corrected. The officer turned back to the manager. So he didn't cut a wire, he said. He didn't break a lock. He didn't enter your building. Marla stepped forward, voice sharp. But the clubhouse is down. People are trapped at the gate. The officer's eyes narrowed. If your gate depends on his private meter, he said, that's a bigger problem than a line of cars. For the first time, Marla didn't have a clean comeback. She looked at the manager like she wanted her to fix it. The manager tried a different angle. He's refusing to cooperate, she said. I pulled my phone out and showed the officer the bill amount. I didn't dramatize it. I just let the number sit there. Then I showed him the attorney email in all caps demanding I restore power. Then I showed him the utility case number. The officer exhaled slowly. Okay, he said. This looks like a civil and utility issue. Not a criminal one. Marla's smile vanished. So you're just going to let him hold the community hostage? I'm going to let the utility company do their job, the officer said. And I'm going to suggest you stop threatening him while they do it. That word. Threatening. It hit the HOA manager hard. Her face tightened like she had been caught on a hot mic. Then the officer looked at me again. Do you feel safe? He asked. I glanced at Marla. She was standing too close. Her hands were clenched. Not really, I said. The officer nodded once and turned his body slightly, putting himself between us. He said to Marla, step back. Marla took one step back, but her eyes stayed locked on me like she was promising something later. The utility tech spoke again, calm and firm. I'm filing this as suspected diversion, he said. Your association needs to arrange proper separation today. The HOA manager's phone started ringing non-stop. She answered one call, then another. Each time her voice got thinner. Yes, I know. No, I can't. We're working on it. She kept looking at the dark clubhouse like it was personally insulting her. Then she turned to me and said, very quietly, if you don't flip that breaker back on, the board is going to make your life miserable. Before I could answer, Marla leaned in and said, even quieter. And I know exactly how. At that moment, a second car pulled up behind the patrol vehicle. A man stepped out holding a clipboard and a folder. He walked straight toward me like he had been sent for one reason only. And when he got close enough, he asked, are you the owner of Unit 14? I have papers for you. The guy with the clipboard didn't look angry. He looked bored. Like this was just another stop on his route. He asked my name, checked his form, and held out an envelope. Marla crossed her arms like she had won something. The HOA manager stopped her calls long enough to watch. I took the envelope and said, what is this? Service of notice, the man said. You've been directed to appear. And you've been instructed to restore power immediately. The officer raised a hand. Directed by who? He asked. The man pointed at the paperwork. The association's counsel, he said. I opened it right there. My hands were steady, but my stomach wasn't. The first page had my address. My unit number. My full name. And a bold line that said I was intentionally interfering with community operations. It claimed I had disabled common area electrical systems. It claimed I had created a security risk. It even claimed I had refused reasonable requests to cooperate. Then I saw the part that made my jaw tighten. It called the power connection a temporary emergency configuration. Temporary. Like they had done it on purpose and were hoping nobody would ask questions. I looked up at the utility tech. Can you read this? I asked. I handed him the page. He scanned it, then looked at the officer. They're asking him to restore a connection we believe is unauthorized, he said. That's not a reasonable request. Marla snapped, it's our property. He doesn't get to decide. The tech didn't raise his voice. The meter is not your property, he said. And the breaker is inside his panel. The HOA manager stepped closer and lowered her voice like she was offering me a deal. Just turn it back on for tonight, she said. We will handle the billing later. We have people coming. The board will make it right. I stared at her. You had weeks to make it right, I said. Instead you sent threats. You sent an attorney. You called the police. Her smile twitched. Because you forced our hand. I flipped to the last page of the packet, expecting more threats. Instead, I found a list of exhibits. Vendor invoices. Work dates. And a board meeting note that said the security upgrade was approved to be completed immediately. A date was printed next to it. It was the exact week my bill started climbing. I didn't say anything at first. I just looked at Marla. Then at the manager. Then back at the paper. Marla's eyes narrowed. What are you looking at? She asked. I held the page up. This, I said. This is when it started. The utility tech leaned closer. Can I take a copy of that? He asked. Marla took one quick step forward, like she was about to snatch it out of my hands. The officer shifted with her. He said, firm. Do not. And in that tiny pause, with everyone watching, I realized something simple and terrifying. They didn't just want the power back. They wanted the documents back. Marla held her hands up like she was the reasonable one now. Nobody is taking anything, she said. Those are internal documents. They're in my hand, I said. And they were just served to me. The utility tech asked again, polite. I only need the page with the dates and the vendor name. It helps our report. The HOA manager forced a laugh. This is getting out of hand, she said. We'll provide anything you need through proper channels. The officer looked at her. You just had your attorney serve him paperwork on the sidewalk, he said. What proper channels are we talking about? I didn't argue. I just did the smartest thing I could do with shaking hands. I opened my phone and started taking clear photos of every page. Slow. Front and back. Date. Vendor. Notes. Marla saw what I was doing and her voice jumped an octave. Stop photographing that, she snapped. That's confidential. It's evidence, the utility tech said. And it's relevant. The manager leaned toward me, softer again. You don't want a lawsuit, she said. You don't want fees. This can be over today. It can be over when my meter stops paying for your building, I said. Her smile fell. Then you leave us no choice. She stepped away and made a call. I heard only pieces. Yes, now, get someone out here, bring the key. I don't care what it costs. A minute later, the attorney called my phone. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. It was all pressure. Restore power immediately. Your exposure is increasing. You are acting in bad faith. I forwarded the voicemail to my email. Then I forwarded it to the utility case email too. Same as the threats. Same as the caps lock letter. The officer watched me do it. He nodded once, like he approved of the calm approach. Behind him, residents were still stuck at the gate. Horn started. Someone shouted Marla's name like it was a curse. The clubhouse alarm finally died, not because it was fixed, but because the backup battery gave up. The utility tech asked me, "Do you consent to a full investigation?" he said. Yes, I said. Do you want us to place a hold on this account due to suspected diversion? He asked. Yes, I said again. The HOA manager heard that and went stiff. You can't do that, she said. The tech didn't blink. We can, he said. And we will. Then he pointed at the breaker panel in my garage. Keep that breaker off, he told me. Do not touch anything else. Let them hire a contractor to separate it the right way. Marla's phone rang again. She answered, listened for 2 seconds, and her face changed. They're sending someone, she said, staring at me. And you're going to regret being so proud right now. 20 minutes later, a white van rolled in with a logo on the side and 2 men in work shirts. One carried a tool bag. The other carried a ladder. They walked straight toward the clubhouse first, then toward my driveway, like they already knew where the problem was. Marla met them halfway and started talking fast. She pointed at my garage. She pointed at the gate. She pointed at the dark clubhouse. Then she looked at me and said, "Fix it. Now." One of the workers approached the utility technician. "We got called for an emergency restore," he said. "They said a homeowner cut power." The utility tech shook his head. "No restore," he said. "We're documenting an unauthorized feed. You don't reconnect anything to this meter." The worker frowned. "We were told it was temporary." The tech held up the page I had photographed. "Temporary since the week his bill exploded?" he asked. The worker's face changed. Not guilt. More like annoyance. Like he had been dragged into something messy. "Who approved this work?" he asked, looking at Marla. Marla snapped, "Just do your job." But the electrician I hired stepped in and pointed at the ground box tag again. "That line is labeled a clubhouse feed," he said. "It should never have been on a private unit." The worker rubbed his forehead. "Okay," he said. "Then we need to reroute." "That's not a quick flip." The HOA manager stepped forward. "We have an event," she said again, like the word was magic. "People are locked out. We need the gate." The worker looked at the tech. "Can we at least get the gate running?" he asked. The utility tech was firm. "Not on this meter," he said. "If you want the gate, you feed it correctly." Marla's voice went icy. "So you're all just going to stand here and watch the neighborhood suffer because he wants to make a point?" I looked at her. "You made the point when you sent me a $5,500 bill," I said. She stepped closer. "You're enjoying this," she whispered. I didn't answer. Because at that moment, one of the workers opened a panel near the clubhouse and said, guys." We all turned. He pointed at a bundle of fresh wiring and a small black box bolted inside. "This is new," he said. "And it's tied into the same feed." The utility tech walked up, took one look, and his voice went flat. "That's not just lighting," he said. "That's a constant draw." Marla's face tightened. "I don't know what that is," she said quickly. The worker stared at her. "Someone does," he said. "Because somebody paid for it." Then Tom, still watching from the sidewalk, said something that made the air feel colder. "Wait," he said. "Doesn't Marla's brother own an electrical company?" Tom's words hung there for a second. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just a simple question that nobody wanted to answer. Marla's eyes snapped to him. "That has nothing to do with this," she said. One of the workers blinked. "Wait," he said. "Marla, as in Marla H." Marla didn't reply. The worker pulled his phone out and scrolled through his own work notes. "Because I've seen that last name," he said. "On a work order." The HOA manager stepped in fast. "You are not authorized to discuss internal invoices," she said. The worker looked confused. "You called us," he said. "For an emergency. And I need to know what I'm dealing with." My electrician asked, calm, "Who ran this new line?" The worker hesitated, then said, "It wasn't us. This looks like it was added after the last inspection sticker. It's clean work, though. Not random." The utility tech stepped closer to the panel and pointed. This is tied to a private meter, he said. If a contractor did this, I need the contractor name. Right now. Marla crossed her arms tighter. It was a vendor, she said. Approved by the board. Which vendor? The tech asked. Marla didn't answer. The HOA manager did, but she said it like she was swallowing nails. She gave a company name. The utility tech wrote it down. Then he looked up. And who owns that company? He asked. Nobody spoke. Not even Marla. Tom, still standing there, said, that's her brother's company. I'm pretty sure. The worker let out a low whistle. If that's true, he said, then this is not a mistake. This is a choice. Marla stepped forward like she wanted to end the conversation with her body. You all need to leave, she said. This is HOA property. The officer shifted his stance again. They're utility and licensed contractors, he said. They're not leaving because you're embarrassed. Marla's face twitched. I am not embarrassed, she snapped. But her voice cracked on the last word. The utility tech turned to me. I need a statement, he said. About the bill increase and the dates. I nodded. I have everything, I said. Bills. Emails. Threats. And the timeline. The HOA manager's phone started ringing again. She answered, listened, then turned away and covered the mic. I heard her whisper, no, do not come here. Not now. Marla's phone buzzed right after. She checked it, and her face went pale in a way she couldn't control. Then she looked at me and said, quiet and sharp, turn the breaker on. Please. It was the first time she had used that word all day. And that's when I knew something bigger was about to surface, because people like Marla do not say please unless they are already cornered. I looked at Marla and said, please is new. Her lips pressed together. She glanced at the crowd by the gate. Then back at the dark clubhouse. Then at the utility technician, like she was trying to read the outcome on his face. The HOA manager stepped in and tried a different tone. We can cut you a check today, she said. A reimbursement. Full amount. Just restore power for now. My electrician gave a short laugh. A check doesn't fix illegal wiring, he said. The worker from the van nodded. If that feed is wrong, we have to correct it, he said. If we reconnect it, and it burns, that's on us. Marla's eyes flashed. Nobody said anything about illegal, she snapped. The utility tech didn't react. He just asked, who signed the work order? Calm. Flat. Like he already knew it would hurt. Marla's face stayed still, but her throat moved when she swallowed. I opened my phone and pulled up the photo I took of the exhibit page. I zoomed in on the date. Then I showed it to the tech. That's the week it started, I said. That's when my bill changed. The tech nodded and said, I'm calling this in as priority. He walked to his truck and made a call. While he was gone, Marla leaned toward me again. Her voice dropped. You can make this go away, she said. Turn it back on. We'll handle it quietly. Quietly is how you got away with it, I said. Her eyes narrowed. You don't know what you're accusing me of. I'm not accusing you, I said. I'm watching you react. The HOA manager's phone buzzed again. She listened, then her face tightened. They're sending someone, she said to Marla, almost under her breath. Marla's confidence cracked. Who? She asked. The manager didn't answer. She just looked at the utility tech's truck like it was a police car. A few minutes later, another vehicle pulled in. Not a patrol car. Not a contractor. A plain sedan. The driver stepped out with a hard hat in one hand and a folder in the other. He walked straight to the utility technician, shook his hand, and started talking in a low voice. Then the tech waved me over. This is from our investigations unit, he said. He's going to ask you some questions. The man opened his folder and flipped to a page covered in printed photos. He pointed at one image. It was my meter box. Then he pointed at another. It was the clubhouse panel. He looked up at me and said, "How long have you been paying for this connection?" And behind him, I heard Marla whisper to the HOA manager, "Tell him it was temporary. Tell him it was an emergency." I told the investigations guy the truth. "I moved in 2 months ago," I said. "My bills were normal." Then they jumped the same week the HOA announced the security upgrade. I called the HOA. They told me to pay. That's it. He nodded and wrote something down. "Do you have the bills?" he asked. I opened my email and pulled up the statements. Month after month. Then the sudden spike. I handed him my phone for a second so he could see the dates and the usage chart. He didn't react like a customer service rep, he reacted like someone building a file. "This pattern is consistent," he said. "It starts and stops like equipment. Not like a home." Marla stepped closer, trying to get into the circle. "This is getting ridiculous," she said. "We already explained. It was a temporary emergency configuration." The investigations guy turned his head slightly. "Temporary for how long?" he asked. Marla hesitated. "Until the contractor finished," she said. "Which contractor?" he asked. Marla looked at the HOA manager. The manager jumped in. "We can provide vendor details later," she said. He didn't accept that. He pointed at the unlabeled breaker in my open panel. "This feed is active right now," he said. "And it's tied to a private meter. If you know who did it, now is the time to say it." The worker from the van cleared his throat. "If you want it separated," he said, "we need permits. And we need access to the clubhouse electrical room. And we need the original work order. Whoever installed this knew what they were doing." The HOA manager's face tightened. "We don't have to show you internal paperwork," she said. My electrician replied, "Then you don't get to use his meter." The investigations guy asked me, "Did the HOA ever tell you that your meter powered anything outside your unit?" "No," I said. They acted like I was crazy for asking. He looked at Marla again. "And you sent an attorney letter demanding he restore the connection," he said, like he was reading it off a list. Marla snapped, "Because he shut off power to the community." The officer, still nearby, said, "He shut off a breaker in his own home." "You called me like he was cutting cables." The investigations guy stepped a little closer to Marla. "Not aggressive. Just direct." He said, "If your gate and clubhouse were dependent on one homeowner's meter, that tells me this wasn't approved the right way." Marla opened her mouth, then stopped. Her phone buzzed again. She checked it, and her face changed fast. The HOA manager saw it and reached for Marla's phone, like she wanted to stop her from reading the message. Too late. Marla looked up at the investigations guy and said, almost breathless, "Can we talk somewhere private?" He didn't move. "We can talk right here," he said. And that's when Marla said the one thing she could not take back. It wasn't supposed to be his unit. For a second, nobody spoke. Even the gate line went quiet. People stopped honking. Like the whole neighborhood had leaned in at the same time. The investigations guy stared at Marla. "What do you mean, it wasn't supposed to be his unit?" he asked. Marla blinked fast. "That's not what I meant," she said. "I mean, it was supposed to be temporary." He didn't let her slide. "Which unit was it supposed to be connected to?" he asked. The HOA manager stepped forward. "This is a misunderstanding," she said. "We are here to resolve it." The officer said, "Then answer the question." Marla looked around like she was searching for an exit that wasn't there. "I don't know," she said. "It was handled by the vendor." The worker from the van shook his head. "No vendor guesses a unit," he said. "Somebody points." My electrician kept his voice calm. And somebody chose a private meter, he said. Not a common meter. The investigations guy asked again, slower this time. Which unit was it supposed to be, he said. Because you just told me this was planned. Marla's cheeks turned red. It was supposed to be on a different line, she said. A different meter. That's all. Tom said, so you were going to dump it on someone else? Marla snapped her head toward him. No, but she didn't sound sure. She sounded scared. The investigations guy wrote something down and said, I need your full name and your position with the association. Marla hesitated. Why? Because this is no longer a billing complaint, he said. This is an unauthorized diversion investigation. The HOA manager tried to interrupt. We can reimburse him, she said. Today. Right now. The investigations guy didn't even look at her. Reimbursement doesn't change intent, he said. And it doesn't explain the attorney threat letter. Marla's phone buzzed again. She glanced at it and her hand started to shake. She turned the screen away from everyone, but I caught one word on the notification preview. Brother. The worker's eyes went to Marla's face. Did you call him? He asked. Marla didn't answer. The utility tech walked back to my meter box and placed a bright tag on it. Do not reconnect, it read. He snapped a photo of the tag with my address visible in the frame. Then he looked at me and said, your account will be protected while this is reviewed. Marla heard that and took one step toward my garage. No, she said, like she was talking to herself. No, no, no. The investigations guy stopped her with his voice. He said, if you touch that panel, I will document it. Marla froze. And right then, a new car pulled up fast near the gate. A man got out, eyes wide, walking straight toward Marla. He looked at the dark clubhouse. Then at the utility trucks. Then at the crowd. And he said, loud enough for everyone to hear, Marla, what did you do?